At first, everyone thought the canine dog was just being disobedient. But when he stormed the stage in the middle of a glamorous orphanage gala, interrupting the mayor's speech and barking like his life depended on it, no one knew that within days, authorities would uncover something beneath that very stage that would haunt them forever. Right finger, stay with us, because what you're about to hear is based on true events. And it all started with a dog who simply refused to stay silent. Welcome to Heroic Animals, the channel where the unheard heroes bark, roar, and sometimes even sacrifice everything for the truth. If you believe animals aren't just pets, but protectors, guardians, and sometimes the last hope, then you're in the right place. Right finger, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Every story here reminds us, sometimes, the bravest voice doesn't come from a human. The grand hall of Willow Creek Orphanage shimmered under chandeliers that hadn't been lit in years. For once, the laughter of children echoed alongside the clinking of champagne glasses and murmured conversations in designer suits. It was a gala night, years in the making. Local politicians, wealthy donors, and the press had all shown up to celebrate the orphanage's recent expansion and its miraculous transformation under new leadership. In the far corner of the room, Officer Lily Ward adjusted her posture uneasily. Unlike most guests, she wasn't wearing a dress or heels, but her standard issue uniform. Beside her sat Apollo, her K9 partner, an alert, jet-black German shepherd with eyes that never stopped scanning the room. They had only been invited for a brief demonstration earlier, to show how Apollo had helped find a missing child last fall. That part was over, but for some reason, Apollo refused to settle. His ears kept twitching toward the stage. His nose lifted every few seconds. Something was off, and Lily could feel it too, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Then, just as the mayor stepped up to the podium to begin his speech, it happened. Apollo let out a low growl. Lily turned. "Hey," she whispered. "It's okay, buddy. It's just a speech." But Apollo didn't listen. Without warning, he sprang up, bolting toward the stage. His leash slipped from Lily's hand. Before anyone could react, Apollo had climbed 2 steps and positioned himself dead center in front of the mayor. He began to bark, loud, fierce, rapid. It echoed through the entire room, stopping every fork, every camera, every breath. At first, people laughed nervously. "Looks like he wants to give a speech too," someone joked. But then Apollo began scratching at the wooden floor just in front of the podium. Nose pressed to the ground, tail rigid, bark, scratch, bark, scratch. Lily ran after him, heart pounding. "Apollo, heel, now." The mayor looked annoyed, stepping back. "Is this part of the show?" "It's not," Lily muttered, gripping Apollo's harness and trying to pull him away. He resisted, paws locked against the polished floor. From the audience, whispers grew louder. "This is inappropriate. Why bring a police dog to a gala anyway? I thought this was supposed to be a dignified evening." The orphanage director, a sharply dressed woman named Ms. Everly, stepped up quickly. "Officer Ward, please control your dog. This is highly disruptive." Lily managed to tug Apollo off the stage with the help of a security guard. The dog's eyes never left that patch of floor. Even as they pulled him away, his neck craned, his ears stiff. He kept barking until the doors to the hall shut behind them. Outside, under the pale glow of the garden lights, Apollo finally stopped. He sat down, but his body trembled slightly, like a taut wire under pressure. Lily knelt beside him. "What was that, boy?" she asked, her voice low. "What did you smell in there?" He didn't respond, of course. But he didn't need to. His eyes said everything. Whatever was under that stage, it wasn't just wood and beams. Lily glanced back at the grand hall, where applause had resumed and speeches continued like nothing had happened. But her gut told her otherwise. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and Apollo had just sounded the first alarm. The day after the gala, Willow Creek Orphanage returned to its usual routine, at least on the surface. The grand hall had been cleared of decorations, and the red carpet was rolled back into storage. News outlets published cheerful articles praising the event as a symbol of hope for underprivileged children. But Officer Lily Ward couldn't shake the unease in her chest. Apollo had barely touched his food that morning. He paced the floor of her small apartment, pausing only to stare out the window. His ears perked. his stance alert. Every few hours, he would scratch at the front door and look up at her with those sharp eyes. "You want to go back?" Lily muttered, kneeling beside him. "You think something's still there, don't you?" She couldn't deny it anymore. She felt it too. Later that day, a call came in from the department. One of the orphanage's night staff members, a woman named Tessa Mayfield, hadn't shown up for her shift. She hadn't called in sick. Her phone went straight to voicemail. And oddly enough, her last known location was the Gala, the same stage where Apollo had barked. Lily's pulse quickened. She requested permission to revisit the orphanage under the pretense of following up on the missing person report. Apollo came with her, of course. This time, she didn't bring his leash. She wanted to see where he would go on his own. The moment they stepped onto the orphanage grounds, Apollo became laser-focused. He didn't sniff the gardens. He didn't wander toward the kitchens where the kids usually gathered. He trotted straight to the Gala hall. "All right, buddy," Lily whispered. "Show me." The double doors creaked open. The lights were off, but sunlight filtered in through tall windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. The stage was still there, pristine, polished, and quiet. Apollo didn't hesitate. He walked to the same spot, front center, just beneath where the podium had stood, and began sniffing again. This time, more slowly, deliberately. Then he whined, circling the area, nose pressed against the baseboard at the back of the platform. Lily got on her knees and ran her hand along the seam where the floor met the wall. It looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. She tapped the baseboard. Hollow. She pressed it gently. Nothing happened. Then Apollo began to scratch, not at the front this time, but near the rear curtain. His paw caught the edge of something metal. Lily reached in. A small, flush-mounted access panel. "Seriously?" she whispered. She slid it open. Inside was a switch. She hesitated, then flipped it. With a faint click, a portion of the rear stage wall groaned. Dust fell from above. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the panel shifted backward, revealing a narrow crawl space about 3 feet high and pitch black. Apollo backed up and growled. Lily reached for her flashlight and peered inside. Nothing, at least, nothing she could see from the entrance. But the air that wafted out, it was stale, damp, and oddly chemical. "Jesus," she whispered. "What the hell is this place?" Before she could crawl in, a voice called from behind. "Officer Ward?" She spun around. It was Ms. Everly, the orphanage director. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were sharp. "I wasn't informed about a follow-up visit. May I ask what this is regarding?" Lily stood quickly. "One of your staff members didn't report for her shift. Tessa Mayfield. I'm just making sure everything's okay." Ms. Everly's smile tightened. "Oh, yes, Tessa. She left early last night. Said she wasn't feeling well. Probably just resting." Lily didn't respond. Apollo stood protectively between them, his ears up, his eyes locked on Ms. Everly. And Lily couldn't help but notice, Ms. Everly's gaze never once drifted toward the open crawl space. Officer Lily Ward didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying the moment when Ms. Everly appeared behind her in the auditorium. The way she spoke so calmly about Tessa's disappearance. The forced smile. And most of all, the way her eyes avoided the open crawl space completely. Lily had been an officer long enough to know when someone was hiding something. So the next morning, she made a decision. She was going back, with backup. And a warrant. By noon, she returned to Willow Creek Orphanage with 2 other officers. A building inspector. And of course, Apollo. This time, the orphanage staff were not informed in advance. The gala hall was locked when they arrived, but Lily had the authorization to open it. Inside, the air was cooler than expected. The curtains on the stage had been drawn shut. Everything was exactly as it had been 2 days ago, except for one thing. The floor beneath the podium looked newer. Lily stepped forward, crouched, and ran her fingers across the wooden panel. She frowned. It had been scrubbed, varnished, recently. "Apollo," she called quietly. The German shepherd padded forward, nose to the ground. He sniffed the floor, circled twice, then stopped at the same patch where he'd barked during the gala. And then he growled. He began to scratch, not gently this time. His claws tore at the edge of the board, revealing a faint seam that wasn't visible before. "Over here," Lily shouted. The building inspector joined her, tapping along the seams. He gave her a look, grim and certain. There's an air pocket underneath. Minutes later, the team used tools to pry open the floorboard. What they uncovered was shocking. Beneath the stage was not just a crawl space, but a hidden chamber. Nearly the size of a small room. It wasn't listed in the building's blueprints. And it clearly hadn't been accessed through any legal renovation. The officers lowered themselves into the space carefully. Apollo stayed at the edge, whining, pacing back and forth. Lily descended last, her flashlight scanning the walls. And what she saw made her skin crawl. One wall was covered in peeling wallpaper, faded illustrations of cartoon animals. It looked like it was meant to look child-friendly. But on the opposite side, there were chains bolted to the wall. A single metal chair sat in the middle, rusted and stained. A spotlight fixture hung overhead. And in the corner was a small camera on a tripod, pointed straight at the chair. "What the hell?" one officer muttered. "Don't touch anything," Lily said sharply. "This is a crime scene now." In the far corner, someone noticed a storage crate. Inside were rolls of duct tape, sedatives with faded labels, a stack of memory cards, and several small shoes. Children's shoes, all tagged with tape, names, ages. Lily's hands trembled. Whoever had used this room hadn't just done it once. It had been planned, organized, hidden in plain sight, beneath a stage meant for charity speeches and photo ops. And somehow, Apollo had known. As they exited the space, Lily looked up to find the orphanage staff gathered quietly at the doorway of the auditorium. None of them said a word, but in the back of the group, Ms. Everly stood still, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Apollo walked to Lily's side and sat, eyes fixed on the crowd, ears tilted toward something only he could sense. And Lily whispered to herself, "This place isn't what it pretends to be." The air inside the chamber was thick, heavy with dust, decay, and something more unsettling, like fear, had soaked into the very walls. Lily stood frozen as her flashlight beam passed over the children's shoes again. Small sneakers, a pair of ballet flats, all with faded name tags scrawled in marker. The camera in the corner faced the metal chair like it had waited for its next victim. The spotlight above still worked. Someone flipped the power switch by mistake. And it buzzed to life, casting a single stark beam downward. Every shadow seemed to deepen, like the room itself was recoiling from the light. A technician from forensics knelt by the crate. "These sedatives, they're veterinary grade," he murmured. "Some are expired, others aren't." Lily's stomach twisted. Why would anyone have this here, under an orphanage? There was no answer, just silence, and Apollo's low growl from above. Back on the stage, he paced restlessly, tail rigid, head low. His instincts had been right from the beginning. One officer took photos of everything. Another collected the memory cards, carefully placing them in evidence bags. But the worst discovery came when they noticed a section of the chamber's floor that sounded different when stepped on. A shallow thud instead of a thump. They pulled back the old linoleum tiles. And there it was, a trapdoor. Everyone exchanged glances. "No one goes down alone," Lily said. The door creaked open. A narrow staircase descended into darkness, much deeper than expected. The flashlight beams flickered against concrete walls that had been hastily painted black. The air grew colder, mustier. They found themselves in a second room. Smaller, more enclosed, like a bunker. But what was inside didn't belong in any orphanage, or anywhere that claimed to care for children. Metal filing cabinets lined one wall, filled with dossiers, each one labeled with a child's name, photo, and detailed notes, medical history, behavioral evaluations, handwritten annotations like compliant, high value, or requires sedation. There were at least 40 folders. One officer swore under his breath. Another stepped back, visibly shaken. Lily pulled one out and flipped through it. A boy named Kyle D., age 9, listed as missing for 2 weeks last year. Returned with limited memory, according to the orphanage's old public statement. But this folder had a different truth. Returned after phase 2. Non-verbal. Keep under observation. She slammed the drawer shut. "This is a system," she said coldly. This wasn't one person acting alone. As they emerged from the trapdoor hours later, covered in dust and disbelief, the entire orphanage seemed to be holding its breath. A crowd had gathered outside the hall, some staff, Some older orphans who had sensed something was wrong. Whispers rippled through the group as officers sealed the room with crime scene tape. Apollo sat beside Lily again. She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "You knew." His ears perked. His eyes locked on the orphanage entrance. And just then, a scream rang out from one of the upper dormitories. A teenage girl burst through the hallway. Hysterical. "They're taking Mikey," she cried. "I saw them. He's in the basement." Officers ran, Lily and Apollo at the front. But something about the girl's words chilled Lily more than the rest. She hadn't said, "He's in a room." She'd said, "the basement." Which meant, there was more. Much more. And someone was still trying to hide it. Lily dashed up the corridor. Apollo sprinting beside her with terrifying speed. The teenage girl who screamed, her name was Jenny, was still sobbing. Barely able to speak. "They took Mikey, he was in the rec room. And then they told him someone wanted to adopt him. But I saw them go down. Under the stairs near the laundry room. There's a door no one's supposed to open." Lily didn't wait for backup. She turned sharply, heading toward the laundry hall Jenny mentioned. Apollo led the way. The hallway narrowed. The lights here flickered slightly, older wiring. Likely untouched for years. At the far end was a heavy steel door. Painted over to match the wall. Barely visible unless you were looking for it. Apollo stopped in front of it. Hackles raised. Nose pressed to the seam. "Back up, boy," Lily whispered. She pulled her weapon. The door was locked with an old padlock. But one officer quickly arrived with bolt cutters. The metal snapped. They opened the door. A narrow flight of stairs descended into a space far older than the rest of the building. Damp air rushed upward, carrying a scent Lily would never forget, a mix of mildew, rot, and something metallic. They descended in silence, hearts pounding. At the bottom was another room. No windows, just flickering yellow bulbs overhead. In the corner, a small boy sat curled in a fetal position on a cot, arms covering his head. "Mikey?" Lily called softly. He didn't respond. Apollo moved forward carefully, then sat beside the boy, tail still, body calm. Mikey peeked through his arms. "You're not one of them?" he whispered. Lily crouched beside him. "No, sweetie, you're safe now." But Mikey shook his head. "No one's safe here. They said if we talked, they'd take us to the quiet room. Kids go there, and sometimes they don't come back." Her blood ran cold. Over the next 2 hours, officers found 2 more hidden rooms. One was empty. The other had a mattress on the floor and crayon drawings on the wall, done in a shaky child's hand. One picture showed a child in a cage. Another showed a man in a suit handing a child to a shadow with red eyes. But it wasn't until they brought the children together, Jenny, Mikey, and a few of the older ones, that the full scope of the horror began to take shape. "They made us lie," Jenny said, voice trembling. "When kids left for weeks, we had to say they were sick, or visiting new families. They weren't," Mikey added. "They were taken down there. I heard screaming once. They made me wear headphones and told me to be good." One child, an 11-year-old boy named Ezra, took out something hidden in his sock, a small USB flash drive. "They didn't know I saw it," he said. "One of the men dropped it near the stairs. I've been too scared to tell anyone." When forensics opened the drive, the contents were damning. Encrypted files, hidden folders, videos labeled with dates and strange code names, and images, grayscale captures of children bound to chairs, their eyes blank, forced to stare into the camera. The room went silent. Ms. Everly, the orphanage director, had vanished. Her office was cleared out. Phone disconnected. Her car missing. An APB was issued within the hour. The once celebrated gala now felt like a mockery, an event to hide in plain sight. To silence suspicion. To raise funds for a facility that doubled as a front for something far more sinister. And yet, none of it would have come to light if Apollo hadn't barked. The media exploded within 24 hours. Chilling secret uncovered beneath Orphanage Gala stage. Authorities discover underground room used in child exploitation ring. Local hero dog exposes horrific truth hidden in plain sight. The images were everywhere. Apollo standing proud beside Lily. Children being comforted by rescue teams. Investigators hauling out evidence boxes under tarps. But behind the headlines and public outrage, the task force was still piecing together the web of people involved. Ms. Everly had disappeared. Yes, but she wasn't the one funding this place. Lily sat in the precinct war room, flipping through financial records from the orphanage's last 5 years. She noticed something odd. Every major upgrade, new security system, hall renovations, expensive tech in the classrooms, had been gifted by one name. Raymond Foster, the beloved philanthropist, the savior of Willow Creek Orphanage, the man who gave the speech that opened the gala, a retired CEO of a global logistics firm, now publicly dedicated to helping children thrive. He had shaken Lily's hand that very night, smiled warmly, posed for photos with orphans and donors alike. Lily's voice dropped. He was standing on top of it. The whole time. They dug deeper. Raymond Foster had donated nearly $500,000 in the past 2 years. No questions asked. He'd also funded several other facilities across the state. Some had been quietly shut down for administrative issues. Others were still active. But there was more. One of the USB drives recovered from the trapdoor contained encrypted emails, messages between Foster and someone with the alias, Caretaker 1. The tone was clinical, detached, full of coded references. Phase prep. Non-compliant asset. Cycle complete. Archive and release. The final message. Dated just 3 days before the gala. Read. Stage secured. Last batch on site. Post-gala extraction scheduled. Lily stared at the screen. Her jaw clenched. He was going to remove the kids after the gala. Right under everyone's noses. A federal warrant was issued for Foster's arrest. His estate was raided, but he wasn't there. Surveillance showed him leaving in a private vehicle that night. Hours after the gala ended. Heading west. He was gone. But not for long. Apollo's nose would prove critical once again. 2 days later, a tip came from a motel clerk in a remote coastal town. A man matching Foster's description had checked in under a fake name. When agents arrived, Foster had already fled, but he left behind a duffel bag filled with burner phones, cash, and an unregistered GPS tracker tucked into the lining. It had a route loaded on it. A compound in the woods. Off-grid. A raid team assembled that night. Lily insisted on going. So did Apollo. As they crept through the woods just before dawn, Apollo stopped suddenly. Nose twitching. Ears forward. He began to growl, low and steady. "He's close," Lily whispered. "He knows." Moments later, they spotted it. An old hunting lodge with covered windows. Faint light glowing from inside. No security cameras. Too quiet. The team fanned out. Inside, they found something no one was prepared for. Not just Foster, but recordings, binders of medical logs, photos of children across multiple states, and even travel manifests for untraceable flights. This wasn't just an orphanage scandal. It was the tip of an international exploitation network. And Raymond Foster was the center of it. As they cuffed him and read his rights, he didn't scream or struggle. He smiled. "You think this ends with me?" he said calmly. "You're just scratching the surface." But Lily didn't flinch. She turned to Apollo, who stood behind her, silent, unwavering. "No," she said, "we're just getting started." Raymond Foster sat motionless in the steel chair, hands cuffed in front of him. The cold glow of the interrogation room's overhead light slicing across his face. He didn't look like a monster. No wild eyes, no panic, just calm, unbothered, like a man who had already calculated every outcome. Lily stood on the other side of the two-way mirror, fists clenched at her sides. Apollo sat next to her, quiet but alert, as if he, too, sensed what this man truly was. Across the table, Agent Ramirez began the questioning. "You've been charged with multiple counts of child endangerment, unlawful imprisonment, trafficking, and conspiracy to commit crimes across state lines. Do you understand the charges?" Foster gave a slight nod. "I understand the theater." Ramirez didn't blink. "You're also linked to encrypted communications involving facilities in Georgia, Texas, and Oregon. That's federal territory." Another nod. "So I suppose this is where you hope I start begging for a deal." Lily stepped into the room. Ramirez looked up, surprised. "Officer Ward, she's the reason we found your chamber." Ramirez continued. "Or rather, her dog is." Foster finally turned his gaze toward Lily. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "The animal. The only one in that entire room who listened to instinct. A shame most humans have lost that." Lily leaned in. What was your instinct when you built a prison under a stage meant for orphans? Foster smiled. Control. You'd be amazed what can be done in the open, if you just decorate it well enough. He didn't deny anything, didn't defend, he boasted. He spoke of phases and screening models. How children were chosen based on compliance, silence, fear. How he built partnerships with other institutions, mostly through shell donors and silent investors. He referred to it as a pipeline. From troubled orphanages, to placement facilities, to offshore clinics where no one asked questions. Willow Creek, he said, was just one of many. Lily's heart dropped. How many? She asked. Foster's lips twitched. More than you'll shut down in your lifetime. But I do admire your dog. That bark ruined months of preparation. He sat back. Still, there will be others. Later that evening, Foster was placed into maximum security detention. A media blackout was enforced to protect the ongoing investigation. Files from his compound were shared with Homeland Security, the FBI, and Interpol. But something had changed. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. This was systemic. And it wasn't just Foster. Several names mentioned in the recovered documents were public figures, businesspeople, retired officials, even nonprofit leaders. Some had ties to other orphanages across state borders. Others had financial transactions traced to offshore accounts labeled with rehabilitation programs. Lily stood in the precinct parking lot that night, staring at the horizon. Apollo sat beside her, looking up. They'll try to bury this, she said quietly. People like Foster have friends in places that don't make headlines. Apollo tilted his head, as if asking, what now? Lily smiled faintly. We keep digging. The next morning, a special task force was formed. Lily was offered a seat at the center of it, and Apollo, officially named Federal K-9 Agent Apollo, was inducted as the symbolic lead of the mission. Children from Willow Creek were relocated to trauma-informed care homes. Jenny, Mikey, and Ezra were safe. And at every press conference, the public demanded to know, how did this all begin? The answer was always the same. A dog barked. Mo nam da troi qua. Tri tre mo koi Willow Creek kong kon tun tai nua. Sao quoc du tra. Toa na duok coi la kong fu hop void tre m vin veen. Qua nu bong toi da tham vau kak buk tuong kua no. Qua nu con ak mong bam vau nen mong kua no. No da bai fa hoi mo cash langla. Kong ko me ki. Kong ko bai fat biu. Kai ko su im lang va dong du nat. Nung thay vau du. Mo du gi du moi da shuat heen. Mo trung tam phuk hoi chan thuong cho tre m bai bok lot. Ngoi na Apollo. Kong phi du kak veen chuk dat ten. Ma du chin nung dua tre ma ong da ku. Mo buk tuong dung gon loi vau. Kich thuok nu noi that. Duk bang dong. Cho thay Apollo dang sai buok jua chung. Tai ven len. Meng hoi mo. Tu the gun jock nung ni nong ma an thuong thuk heen ben gun lily. Doi chan buk tuong ko mo dong chu dui nyat. Ong I da sua. Va kuoi kung the joy da lang nghe. Yellow Square Tai Washington, D.C. Lily Chin Lai Ko Ao Kua Apollo Ki Ho Dung Doi Chan Kao Thang Dien Capital. Kak Fong Vien Vei Quan. Mei Ki Trian Hin Ki. Ko Kong Thich Su Chu Y. Nung Hom Ne Kong Phi La Nge Kua Ko. Du La Vei An I. Apollo Ngoi Bin Tin Ki Mo Thuong Gi Si Kap Sao Buok Len Buk Fat Biu. Hom Ne. Chung Ta Kong Kai Tun Vin Mo Don VK9. Thuong Gi Si Noi. Jeong Chak Nich. Chung Ta Tun Vin Long Dung Cam O Dang Tin Kiet Nyat. Ki Moi Noi Lon Trong Fong Pho Lo Kak Bien Bao. Con Cho Ne Da Sua. Va No Ko No. Chung Ta Da Fat Heen Ra Mo Trong Nung Mang Luoi Bok Lot Tre M Lon Nyat Trong Lich Su Gon Day. Sao Du La Trang Phao Te Vang Doi. Lily Kai Zong Ben Gun Noi Ban Dong Han Kuamin. Ti Tham. Ban Lam Tot Lam. Ban Toi. Apollo Lim Ni Vao Te Ko Nu Muon Noi. Chung Ta Van Chua Zong Do. Yellow Square Va Trong Dam Dong. Jenny Da Sao Hun Mo Nam Truoc. Ko kong kon jiat min ki nghe tieng buok chan phia sao nua. Mikey nam chat te ko, an van kong thich tieng dong lon. Nung an mim kuoi ki nin thay Apollo. Ezra mak mo chiak ao koak kong vua van lam. Nung an I van ku shu nu mo noi ko muk dik. Ho kong kon la nan nyan nua. Ho la nung noi song sot. Va ho se kong bao gio quen noi da ju du ton hin thuk. Yellow square tro ve na vau dem home du. Lily koi ao vest kua Apollo va dat bat kua no zong sanbep. No ve doi nung dung lai. Mat ninko. Koki kuoi ki. Beijio lagive? An lying guath they mui gi due? An ta nagoi zong. Tai dung len. Kai. Lang nghe. Nu the luan cho doi mo am ton now du. Mo tiang kiu. Mo rung dong sai tried trend the joy ma nung noi kak kong do wai den. Boy v voi Apollo. Wa bin kong fi la vin vien. No da duok kiem duok. Va luan ko gai ko. Green square loi tuong thuat kuoi kong. Ho noi an ta kai la mo concho. Rang an ta dang fa hong buoi teak. Gay ra mo gun hun lon. Nung Apollo kong he gay ra tiang dong. An I dang jiong len hoi chuang bao dong. Va ki kong I lang nghe. An ta sua. Va vi tiang sua du. Hang chuk dua tre da duok ku. Mo de che toi pham da bai vacha tran. Va the joy no rang doi ki. Nung an hung thuk su nyat di bang bon chan. Day, chin la kao choyan ve Apollo. Chu cho kong bao gio bo quoc. Tiang sua fa vo su I am lang. Movie camera noi kao choyan ne lam ban cam dong. Haken niok dang ki ken heroic animals kua chung toi. Hang tuan. Chung toi chia se nung kao choyan ko that ve nung loi dong vat da tro ton noi bao ve. Chien bin va doi ki la hai vong kuoi kung o nung noi toi tam nyat. Right finger dung quen thich. Chia se va bin luan ben doi. Pa boy vi noi hung teep theo. Ko the dang cho duok lang nghe.